Aloha, everybody. This is Dave Wallace coming to you from my backyard here in Waihoa, Hawaii, and it's raining right now, and I'm sitting under the lychee tree. uh, Nice and sheltered for a bit, and so I'm going to try and finish this film early. I have a couple of announcements before I start in today's Talk Story Time. And the first announcement is we're started on book number three. In fact, book number three is almost done. We're near completion of that and working on the covers. So we're looking at the launch date of September 15th for the Annablaze series. And for those of you who are on my email list, I will be sending you folks updates and the when these books will be released and how you can get them if you want. I'm also looking for a group of people. They call it the ARC team or Advanced Reader Copy team. And these are people that will get copies of the book before it's released and with the understanding that they'll read the book and give honest reviews on the book. So it's called an ARC team. So if you're interested in joining my ARC team for me and reading the books and writing, uh, a lot of you don't like to write, okay? But if you do like to write, you enjoy writing and reviewing literature or stories and giving you honest opinions about them, this is a great opportunity for you, okay? And again, Annablaze is on its way out. I'm also creating a what publishers call a lead magnet, and this lead magnet is a short story. It's a book, a very short book, and I'm calling it Angels, Ghosts, and Spirits of Shingles Hospital. And this is a spin-off from what I've been doing on Kindle Vella, Angels, Ghosts, and Demons: Memoirs of a Spirit Healer. And so most of the stories that I have in this short book, um, again, it's a lead magnet, and it's a free book, and I'll be offering it free to people who will want to subscribe to my email list so that I can send them updates on new books and series that I'm creating. And there's a lot of different things that I am creating and will be creating over time. And it's going to be fun. And dogs are acting up. Anyway, so those are the announcements that I have. And thank you very much for those of you who are reading my Kindle Vella stories. Right now, I have two of them, and Angels, Ghosts, and Demons is one, and the second one is um, Mark of the Eel. I changing it. It was Mark of the Puhi, but you know, if my market was only here in Hawaii, that's fine. But I want a more general audience, so I'm changing the title to Mark of the Eel. That way, people who are not Hawaiian will understand what the story is about. Okay, so that's what I'm doing, and I'm compiling that into books also. Okay, so stay tuned. Anyway, today what I like to share with you is actually what I included in my um, my lead magnet that I'm creating, and I didn't talk about it or write about it, and or if I did, it's somewhere in my files, but I'm going to be sharing that with you. And um, this is the last event that I recall happening in the hospital, Shingles Hospital. And Shingles Hospital was located in Holihua, in Central Plains of Holihua, and it's set up on a hill. And in order to get there, you had to drive a car. There's a roundabout, entrance and exit, a big driveway. And as soon as you pull up, you had trees. The hospital is surrounded by trees, and there's a big banyan tree in front. and the hospital was a single story but long building. It looked almost like a dormitory, okay? And so it was an old building when I was young, so it was there for quite some time. And so the hospital was really old, and by the time I was a kid and stuff, they were already planning to move the hospital down to Kanakakai, where it is, and Molokai General Hospital. Um, you know, in fact, as a kid, I remember participating, helping with the building of the hospital. Okay. Anyway, my last event and the last series of spirits that I saw, I was about 10, 11 years old. And, I was always sick. Every time flu season came around, boom, I end up in a hospital. And when I got sick, I got sick. I mean, I was throwing up and losing weight, and you know, basically a walking skeleton. And my parents tried to take care of me at home because it was expensive going to the hospital, and especially me being constantly in and out. So I caught the flu again, and after spending a couple of days in the hospital, and there was a bunch of us there. The ward was pretty full with a lot of these kids that were suffering from the flu. And while I was there during that time, the angels did come again, and the angels came through the ceiling like they normally do. The ceiling disappears and opens up into the night sky, and looking up, you can see a bright light coming down. And as the bright light entered into the room, you had people walking out, and they were angels that came out. And because the room was filled with a lot of sick kids, a lot of angels came and went around and administered to the kids. By the time I was 11, I learned to, if I see stuff like this, just shut up. Don't say anything because the kid's going to bug you and bug you and bug you. And so I didn't say anything about that one. But after their visitation, I knew that we were on our way to heal. And so within a couple of days, half of the people that were there, half of the kids were there, were discharged. They got well. And for me, I was still kind of sick, borderline. And so so my doctor wanted me to remain in there because besides being sick, I also lost a lot of weight, and he was concerned about that. He wanted me to put on more weight. And so I was there. And in fact, there were probably about four of us left inside the room. And all of a sudden, there was a lot of commotion in the hospital. And I noticed nurses coming into the children's ward, which was a big room with a lot of beds. And the nurses got out this bed, and they started putting a tent over it. And what's going on? Somebody must be really, really sick. And so about an hour went by after this initial panic, and finally, um, the nurses bring in this kid that I knew from elementary, and he was about a year older than me, but I knew him, and he came in, and I could see his face. In fact, he was awake and kind of like looking around and looked pretty scared. And so as I looked at him, he was covered with bandages, but I could see other parts of his hands, especially, that he was burned. Okay, so and there was bandages all over him, and so they brought him into the room and he put him into the bed that was prepared by the nurses. And when he got in, they closed up the tent, and it was a big plastic tent over the bed, and they had oxygen running. And there was a nurse and set sitting right next to this boy, And I knew it was serious because as soon as one nurse would get tired, another nurse would come in and they rotate. But they're keeping a close watch on this boy. Now, I was 11 years old and I had no idea the impact and the possible consequences of a person that was burned. I didn't understand that. But as an adult, I do know. In fact, when the body is burned, especially after listening to the family members that came in and was explaining to the doctors and the nurses what had happened, this is what happened. This family, this boy lived right across the hospital, and they were cleaning yard, and they had stacked up things to burn, and they lit a fire. Well, the apparently the fire wasn't burning fast enough, so they wanted to put accelerant, and this boy went to the shed, and I think he was looking for kerosene. Kerosene, not too bad. Yeah, you can kind of like throw on it, and it won't come back to the fire, and it's a slow burning fuel. But instead of grabbing a can of kerosene, he grabbed a can of gasoline. And when he threw the gasoline onto the fire, the gasoline exploded, and gas went onto his clothes and burned him. So he was burned all on his torso, his arm, and his legs, and second and third degree burns. And when a person suffers that much burn, and the severity of burns like that, the body can go into shock. And just recently there was a actress that got into a car crash, and she was burned, and her body basically shut down from shock, and that's how she died, from the burn. Okay, and so there's numerous cases where people had severe burns, and although they didn't die immediately, once the body went into shock, they passed away from the injuries. So this is what was happening with this young man, and so I knew, just by the nurses and the behavior and the way the doctors were talking, that this boy's life was in danger. And so I started praying, and I started praying, and soon, I think after 24 hours, things kind of like the nurses weren't as concerned, but they kept on checking on him. And one morning, I remember waking up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a big clock in the room, and if you don't want to know what time it is, you just look up. So it was close to 3 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up because I wanted to go use the bathroom. And when I sat up in bed, I looked over to this boy's bed, and there was no nurse over there. Instead, there was a man dressed in black and very tall, and he was standing next to this young man, and kind of like looking at him, and he had his hands up on the rails of the bed and kind of like looking at him, and then he backed off and kind of like just looked at him and stared. And so he knew I was looking at him, or he felt that I looked at him. I was looking at him, so he turned towards me. And when he turned towards me, he had this really handsome face, and looked really friendly, and he smiled. And when he smiled, I looked at him and I said hello, and hi, I said basically, and he told me, and he smiled back, and he says hello, and it was really nice and friendly. So I thought nothing of it. I went to the restroom, and I came back, and by the time I came back, the guy was gone. And when I came back from the bathroom, the nurse that's supposed to be watching him came back in and it looked like she went on a break and was had just left for a bit. And so in between her break, when she had left and I woke up to use the bathroom, this man entered our room. And so when the nurse came, I told the nurse, "Excuse me, who is that man?" And she looked at me, "What do you mean?" So yeah, there's a man standing by his bed, and I pointed to um, this young boy who was burnt, and he said, "There's this man over there. He was tall. He was wearing a suit, and I thought he was a preacher, you know, because of the way he was dressed." And the nurse looked at me and says, "There's nobody over here. No visitors allowed after 10. So, in fact, if anybody was visiting during that time, they would have to see her. She was in charge of that unit during that time. So, nobody was there." And I couldn't understand what this person or who this person was. And I kept on uh, talking to the nurses, and there was this man. There was this man. And so finally, they kind of like just told me, "Yeah, go sleep. I must be imagining what I saw." And so I tried to go back to sleep, and I couldn't. The thought of this man that was standing next to this boy's bed was concerning to me. Like, what did this guy do? Why was he there? And so I tried to go sleep, was toss and turn, toss and turn, toss and turn. Right around 5 o'clock, and so I had to get back up, and this time do use the bathroom again, and I ran out to the bathroom, and when I came back, this nurse that's supposed to be watching this boy was gone, and right when I came back inside the bed, there something strange started happening inside the room. I could feel kind of like um, people passing me, uh, just like walking past me, and I could feel them, and they were just zoom, 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 and suddenly around the bed of this young boy, there's this light, kind of like a golden glow, and it started to appear, and as the light got brighter, it illuminated these people standing around the bed, and there were there's about a dozen of them, and so if I would say a dozen of them, and they look just like the previous angels that came and healed us. They're dressed the same, they look the same. It was very difficult to tell the difference between one and another because, in a way, they look like clones. Okay, they all look the same. And so they're surrounding the bed, and I could feel this vibration coming out, and it was unlike the previous healings, the two previous healings that I went through. The previous healings was a nice warm feeling, and like being overcome by a nice warm feeling through the body and easing through. This one was really different. It was vibrating, pulsating, and in fact, this pulsating was so kind of like in a rhythm and like a low humming. If I had a glass of water, that glass of water would be shaking, and that's how it was. There's a vibration to this, and I could feel it, and so in fact, it was kind of concerning to me because it started to give me a headache, but it just started vibrating, 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 and they were there for only about less than 10 minutes, 5 minutes most, and then they disappeared, and as quickly as they came, they just disappeared. And shortly after this disappeared, the nurse come back in, and this time I look at her and stuff. She says, "Oh, she didn't believe me about this man in dressed in black," and You think she gonna believe me about this group of angels surrounding this guy's bed? No. So, for me, I felt this. The angels were there to help heal this boy, and this little boy, survived. In fact, he recovered from his injuries, and a few months later, he was in the hospital for quite some time because of his skin. I think they had to graft skin, but the third degree burns and stuff damaged a lot of his parts, and there was probably scars all over him. And so he survived and returned to school, and I got to know him, and he's a good man. So as I started to contemplate, as I started to think about what these different entities were, um, the man in a suit and stuff, that was my first encounter with this man in a suit, and I was 11 years old. Okay. I didn't understand who this man was until I was in my 50s. In fact, the same time I met my current wife, Elle, that's when he revealed himself to me again. And this time, he identified himself as Death. So, this man in a nice suit was Death, taking a look at this boy, teetering between life and death. And instead of taking him, he encouraged the healing angels to come and help this boy. So for me, this lesson and the mercy that Death showed me when I went through the experience of meeting him for the first time, it shows that these angels and these beings, light beings, are very compassionate. They're filled with love. They're filled with understanding, and if they can do something for you, they will try. Okay, and this is where I believe that life is so precious. The ability to live in this life is so precious, and they really hesitate. I think it breaks the hearts of the angels, especially the death angels, to take a child away from the family at such a young age. Okay, all that lost potential. So, um, this angel, the death angel, I met him twice, and again, it's not the big boogeyman that you think about when other people describe death. It's a very compassionate and loving person. In fact, doing the job that he has is probably the most difficult work that any creature in the universe can do, and that's taking the soul and spirit or the spirit of a person that just died. Okay, and convincing them to come follow. All right, so he has to be filled with compassion and be very likable. Okay, I know if death was a spooky creature and stuff, I'd be running. Okay, I would be scared and be running away. But no, the feeling was very opposite, filled with compassion and love. Okay, so these are foods for thought, and this is the last story, last entry in this book that I'm compiling, Angels, Ghosts and Spirits of Shingles Hospital. And it will be available, I believe it should be available by the 1st of September. Okay, and I'm making that available 2 weeks before I release the Anna Blaze series. Okay, so if you folks have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to help you. And again, I'm looking for advanced readers would like to read and critique my book, I need your help. So if you enjoy doing this, please contact me here, okay? And leave me a phone number or email so I can contact you. Anyway, enjoyed speaking with you folks, and catch you folks later. And until next week, this is Dave Wallace from Waihawa, Hawaii, saying mahalo for watching and aloha.